Welcome to the third lecture in 918, Module 7, as we are continuing to look at systems thinking. And in particular, we're walking our way through Peter Senge's idea of the fifth discipline, which is taking systems thinking and applying it to organizations. And again, Senge kind of borrowed from biology and other things, physics and all kinds of areas with this idea of systems thinking, and then applied it to organizations. And so that's why we're looking at it here and thinking of organizations as systems that interact with their environments and interact with within the environment. And then we looked at the first couple of the disciplines there that he laid out, and now we're going to continue to look at the other two. Now, he calls it the fifth discipline because the fifth discipline is the organization becoming a learning organization. So really, there's only four that we're looking at, the four disciplines that then should lead to that fifth discipline of the learning organization, just in case that wasn't clear. As we look at this, the next one is shared vision. And the idea of a shared vision, we talk about shared vision a lot in organizations. It's one of those buzzwords that if you had your corporation or organizational speak bingo buzzword card at a meeting, you would probably be able to check that one off relatively quickly. And I talk in EDD 939, Strategic Leadership, quite a bit about mission, vision, values. All of those are part of that. So I don't want to go into too much detail here. Maybe you've already had that course, or maybe you're going to have that course yet. But the idea of a shared vision, so this isn't the vision statement of the organization. That's where there's a difference. That's more of what we talk about in 939. But this is a shared vision of where we're going. Now, that should show up in the organization's vision statement for sure, but it's more than that. And I put on the one slide some of the initial thoughts. This should be truly shared. This should not be a dictated vision. And that vision statement for the organization is often the one that's from on high. And I don't like to put it that way, because my hope is that everyone in the organization is buying into the vision. But let's be honest, it can also be easy for us at the lower levels to look at that vision statement and go, well, sure, that's your vision. You guys came up with that in some corporate retreat or something like that. And again, in 939, we talk about how do we make that living and vibrant and help people, but recognizing reality too. So shared vision should be truly shared, and it should be more than words, right? Again, corporate buzz speak. I used to do this whole thing. I won't take the time to do it, about stringing all of the buzzwords and phrases together, right? We could probably all do it. And that can show up in statements a lot. But we don't want it to be just words on a page. We want it to mean something. And it's not competitive at its core. So this is not a statement of we're going to be better than our competitor. We're going to be better than them. Sorry, even within a team setting, we're not going to be better than the other team. This is a shared vision. This is more of a positive direction, rather than here's what's wrong with the other person or the other group or the other organization. Here's what's right about us. And so we're going to move in that direction. So that's what we're talking about. And then as we look at the discipline of the shared vision, it's been found that organizations that encourage and foster personal visions do better. And that goes up, talked about that in the last lecture, having that personal vision. So when we encourage individuals to have a personal vision for their role and how they're going to improve and where they want to go within the organization and as a partner of the organization and everything else, then the organization as a whole does better. Everybody is lifted kind of on that wave, so to speak. And so with this, the idea of the shared vision, this takes us back to the power and influence module. When we make the statement, we want commitment, not just compliance. If you remember, I talked about the influence continuum. And there are some things that we're good with compliance. You just need to do it. Do the checklist, be compliant. We need to do it. But then there are things that we need commitment. And commitment's going to be a lot longer lasting. This is where people will go the extra mile. They'll give the extra effort and things like that when they are committed to their success, the success of the organization, the success of everybody. And we want that shared vision, and I talk about this a lot in 939. It's got to be connected to the mission and vision, or I'm sorry, the mission and values of the organization. If not, if my vision is way over here and the mission and values are here, there's a mismatch clearly, and that's not going to work. Probably what that means is I need to get in alignment with the mission and values. Or if we look at that as individuals, if I'm the leader for myself or for people I'm leading, and they're like, but I don't agree with the mission and values of the organization. Okay, then maybe we need to find a different organization to be a part of. Unless you think you have the ability to change that mission and values. But if it's been in existence before you were part of the organization, you probably should have known that before you signed on, right? So again, that's where the shared vision has to be connected to that mission and values. And then we have to see the connection to systems thinking. And what I mean by that is my shared vision. So I have a personal vision, and then we're creating a shared vision, and they all have to connect. And that's why, again, it needs to be connected to the mission and values. A person, so we want to encourage and foster personal visions, but if it's not connected to the organization as a whole, then we have a mismatch, and that doesn't lead us to the shared vision, and that doesn't help us. That's not systems thinking, that's isolated thinking. And so that's where we have to work on making sure that we see the connection to the system as a whole. And then the last one that Senge talks about is this aspect of team learning. And team learning may not quite be what we think it is. And this really leads us into the learning organization idea. And these are my initial thoughts. And this comes from personal experience, having been a part of an organization that was trying to implement Senge's work. And they would run around and they would pat themselves on the back with words, and they would talk about how we are a learning organization. No, they weren't. Because where I say my knots here, that's what they were doing. So being a learning organization or having team learning is not about training and development, or what I would call knowledge acquisition. Just because you have employees going through a lot of training and development, and they could be courses that they need for their job. It could be training job specific. It could be more of the soft skills training. All of that is great. I believe in all of those things, but that's not what we're talking about with team learning. I would argue that's individual learning, which is great. And that's the second point. It's not about individuals on the team learning. Again, please don't hear me saying this is a bad thing. Training and development, knowledge acquisition, skill development, all of those things are great. But that is not what we're talking about with team learning. Instead, it's that third point there. It takes place when the collective knowledge, wisdom, and experience of the team increases, and it's harnessed towards creating results that they really care about. So the idea of team learning is this. I'm pulling all of those things, all of the wisdom, the knowledge, the experience, the skills, all of those things on my team, and we are using all of those things to advance us towards our goal, towards the results, whatever those results may be for our team, whether that's creating widgets or teaching students or achieving some sort of sales goal, whatever kind of organization we're talking about. Team learning is when I pull all of that together. And my hope is that what you see is this means that we're actually working as a team. Because if I am the team manager and I have a star performer, and again, I've seen this happen, that star performer is there, and I pump all of the opportunities to that star performer. The training and development, I send them to extra classes. They get the stretch assignments. They get all of these things. That person is gaining a lot. but the team isn't being lifted. And actually what could happen is, well, first of all, you may burn that person out. And then secondly, you may create animosity and anger and resentment within your team. And so the idea is we want everyone on the team learning, but not just formal learning. We've got to get our heads out of that formal classroom thing. It's we're learning from each other. And so then as we go to the next slide of the discipline of team learning, what you see is it requires a willingness and ability. And by the way, this is an ability to engage in dialogue and discussion. I talked about dialogue in the previous lecture, so I won't rehash that here. But knowing how to effectively engage in dialogue and discussion really is a skill that can be developed. Some people are naturally better at it than others, true, like any skill, but all of us can learn how to do it. And so we have to have the willingness and that ability to get in there. And that means that second point is embracing healthy conflict. Oh, here's a question. Is conflict allowed and encouraged on your team? Do we allow these things, or do we shy away from conflict? Either one, is it squashed down by the leadership, or it has been squashed down in the past, so we as the individual members were like, avoid conflict, Have you been in that meeting where a new person comes in and they start expressing a dissenting view and everybody's just holding their breath, gulping, waiting for the shoe to drop or the hammer to drop on them? That's not healthy conflict. We need to embrace conflict, not argumentation, not pettiness or anything like that. But do we welcome disagreement? And that then leads us to the next one, which means we identify and call out these practices. So this means we have to have such an environment in our organization, in our team, in our group, whatever level we're looking at, to where if somebody does express a dissenting opinion, disagreement, and somebody squashes that or they won't allow it, we call it out. We're like, hey, wait a minute. Just a second. Red flag, right? Flag on the field. I'm going to call a penalty on this one. We said we allowed disagreement. We're not. Which means then we have conversational guidelines. And I'm not going to go into this. I could spend a whole lecture talking about conversational guidelines because there's actual specific conversational guidelines that Senge and some others who have done work with him. I worked with a guy by the name of Ray Jorgensen, and he did a lot of work with Senge's work and some others, and he created a whole system called conversational leadership. And Ray's a consultant and does a lot of work out there. And so there's actual guidelines. I don't just mean like we say, hey, let people talk. No, literally there's certain things like here's how we're going to carry on these discussions and these conversations, and then we hold people accountable to them. And then the last thing I put on the slide is we have to practice. We have to practice these things. It takes, again, it's a skill that needs to be developed, and it's not comfortable. I know when we're in meetings and if I'm really passionate about an idea and somebody disagrees with me, I can feel the heat rising, and I want to get defensive, and I want to show you that my idea is right and I'm right and everything else correct, right? I just said right a lot. But so we've got to practice. We've got to practice saying, okay, I'm going to allow disagreement, or maybe I need to be more bold in expressing my concerns. I have a concern about this. So again, there's so much that goes into this, but that's because the reason it's called team learning is we learn as a group that then moves us forward. So those are the disciplines from Senge. And I'm going to conclude this lecture because I don't want to go too long. And then in the final lecture, it'll probably be a little bit shorter. We'll talk about complexity thinking and how that connects with systems.